What we just heard in the Gospel of St. Mark is the last part of the mission narrative. So the disciples, apostles, are returning from their mission. So, as Father Larry would say, if you have listened to this homily, Jesus tells them, come on, you have gone on a mission, come, let's get together, let's talk about what has happened in your mission. So a sort of day of recollection, day of perhaps retreat, coming together, sharing what has happened. And so he says, come, let's go to a lonely place. But when they get there, my dear sisters and brothers, something wonderful has happened already. That tells us perhaps how effective was their mission. So when they got there all together, instead of allowing them to have their day of recollection or day of aloof or day of retreat, throngs of people around them waiting to listen to Jesus. So Jesus says, yes, you did a mission. I think it was well done. But the fruit of your mission doesn't belong to you. So I should be doing my duty, so let me preach for them. Let me preach to them. So day of recollection is over before it was started. Now, he says, the gospel narrator, very beautifully he says, Jesus had pity over these people. Why? Okay, before that, the word pity, coming from the Latin word misericordia, coming from another two Latin words, miserere or miserere, meanings misery, and cor, meaning heart. So pity, compassion, these words are in English coming from this misericordia, meaning feeling in the heart for those who are in misery. And Jesus tells us why he felt so, or the gospel narrator tells us why Jesus felt that way. He says, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. Sheep without a shepherd. My dear sisters and brothers, I believe this is not by chance we have this gospel passage for our reflection today. I believe it is much more of God's intervention. It's because we are in a time thinking of our own shepherds, thinking of our own leaders, thinking of our type of leadership we would love to have in our family, in our parish, in our workplace, in our country. You imagine, whatever the context you want to imagine. And the first reading says, you shepherds, you led my sheep astray, my flock astray, and so from the shoot of Jesse, I am sending you a shepherd. And this shepherd today in the gospel passage, who in other gospel passages have told us, I am the good shepherd, my sheep, I own them, and they listen to me. And he says, these people are like sheep without a shepherd. So, my dear sisters and brothers, let's have two images in our mind when we go from this Mass today. For our leadership in our family, in our parish, in our society, in our country, and the leadership that we are visioning for the future in our country. So I'm going to give you two images to understand what Jesus is talking about when he says shepherds, or the example of the good shepherd. Okay, on my right, I have a shepherd. So if you have gone to the countryside, you also have seen herdsmen. Have you? Herdsmen? Herdsmen, yes, you have seen. Okay. Okay, so that's on my left. So on my right, the shepherd is the one who leads the sheep, who takes care of sheep. And the herdsman, on the other hand, is the one who takes care of all the rest of the cattle. Be it pigs, be it horses, be it piggery or goats, I don't know, you name me them. Okay. And shepherd, what does he has in his hand? He has a staff in his hand. Crooked staff. All right. We'll talk about why he has that. Okay. Now, on the other hand, see these images. The herdsman has what in his hand? A stick. Stick. All right. Now, shepherd, where does he go? Compared to his flock, the shepherds usually, they go ahead of the flock, before the flock. So they lead, the flock, the sheep follow. All right? So they lead. All right? And they go before. Herdsmen, what do? They go, usually they go behind the cows, behind the pigs, behind the goats. Okay? And now, when they go in front, the shepherds, why do they go in front? Because if a threat comes, an invader comes, attacker comes, predator comes, it is the shepherd, the leader, who faces this threat the first. And the flock is saved, and he faces the threat. That's one. And secondly, with the staff he has in his hand, he uses that to ward off these predators, these attackers, these threats. He uses them against the attackers, but to save his own flock. But at the same time, when his own ones go astray, he just put it around their neck and say, it's time for you to come back. On the other hand, herdsmen, they have a stick in their hand. They go behind their cattle. So what do? When the predator comes, when the attacker comes, when the invader comes, who faces the threat first? Not the leader. Leader is safe. But the flock. They may end up losing one or two. That's the nature of their way of the dynamics of their taking care of the flock. And the stick in his hand, he's using for what? Not to thrash or beat these attackers or the predators, but to beat his own flock. To get them to where he wants them to go. So he keeps on beating with that stick. Not against them, but on them. Using the stick on them. Whereas the staff of the shepherd is used against the predators, but to safeguard his own flock. And this is what is very interesting, coming from the gospel. And so, tell me, if he's not using the stick, if the shepherd is going ahead of his flock and the sheep are behind him, what guarantee he has that these would follow him? Have you ever thought of that? What guarantee he has that these guys would follow me? At least over here, the herdsman stick them up and say, come on, let's go. We need to go. But over here, my dear sisters and brothers, Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and they listen to me. Wow. Which means this guy, the shepherd, when he goes in front, he doesn't go by himself. He keeps talking to them, makes different sounds, different voices, and these guys behind follow it. They listen attentively. It is a relationship of listening, of talking, a mutual communication. Whereas over here, the herdsman, a relationship of stick. It's a stick-related or stick-based, if you want to say, sticky relationship. But over here is a mutual communication. I know my sheep, and they listen to me, and they follow me. So, my dear sisters and brothers, I'm coming to the center right now. So these are needed in life. I do not deny, negate none of them, either of them, neither of them. But I ask you this question. As a leader, as a follower of Christ, you may be having your own flocks, maybe inside the family, in the parish, or at your workplace, in society, or we are thinking of our leaders for this country. Let's ask ourselves, am I a herdsman or a shepherd? Am I going to elect a herdsman or a shepherd? What do they have in their hands? A stick or a staff? What do I have in my hand? A stick or a staff? What is my relationship with my flock? What is their relationship with me as a part of the flock? Is it a sticky or stick-based relationship? Or is it a conversational? Or is it a listening and talking, mutual communication, communicative relationship? And the last question. Before these leaders, am I a cattle